set, Mr. Callahan? Okay. Good afternoon, juniors.
Eli, there we go.
Want to talk to you about ACT. Most of you in September and October took the pre-ACT test. And that test was kind of the kickoff for what we call internally ACT test prep. Because our goal this year is to have you as prepared as you can be for success on the ACT test. The state of Wisconsin has indicated that March 9th is your test date for next spring. And that means all juniors will take the ACT. Very important that you use these next 2-3 months very wisely as you prepare for that test. I have started talking to some of you about your pre-ACT scores. I'm about halfway through the junior class. I will keep working. If you get an email from me, that's me starting that dialogue about ACT and about your plans for after high school. Because it's hard to believe, come May, we're going to roll the database over and you will be seniors. Meaning next fall, we will be asking you right away, what are your plans for after high school? We will be helping you complete applications to technical colleges, four-year colleges, military, workforce, whatever your future holds. ACT is a big part of that. When I talk to the about 30 students I've talked to in the junior class, what I found is that two things kind of stood out. People thought it was a long test and hard to focus. And that's true, it is a very long test. And we're not used to asking you to focus for 3 hours at a time. In the back of my mind, I know that ACT is about 2 hours longer than the pre-ACT you took. So that's something we need to help prepare you for as well. And some of you felt like this test didn't count. It's just practice. So you took it, you experienced it, but you felt like you can try harder come ACT test date. I hope you will have your best performance on that day. But again, it's something that you are going to need to prepare for. And another thing I heard was if you took the test at the Eckstein building or at St. Clement's, it just didn't seem as formal as it would have if you'd have taken it at the high school. Again, I don't know where you'll take the ACT test. There's some logistics we have to work out. But please be prepared to give your very best effort. It's for you. Why ACT? First and foremost, we have heard a lot in the news about colleges not counting ACT scores for high school students. They call it ACT optional. If you like your score, you can have them submitted. If you don't, you can apply without it. That does not apply to you as juniors. It applies to the senior class. The only UW school right now that says to you as a junior class that your ACT scores are optional is UW-Madison. Now, even if they change that because of COVID down the road, and they say ACT is optional for you, it's optional for admissions. Some colleges will still look at ACT scores when they award scholarships. So even though you can get into the school, you still want to try to get a good ACT score because it might get you good financial aid. Back in my day, back in Mr. Callahan's day, ACT was a 4-year college entrance test. Now it is used by technical colleges to determine if you are college ready there as well. So even if you're going up to Southwest Tech, Western Wisconsin Tech, great schools, great educations, but they will still look at your ACT score as one criteria for admitting you. Another reason why you want to give your best effort, $62.50 and a Saturday morning of your time if you have to retake the ACT. The state of Wisconsin is paying for your test on March 9th. After that, it is on you. School pride. We compete in so many different things. Athletics, FFA competitions, band competitions, all wonderful things. Sometimes we forget about the fact that we compete educationally. This time of year, had we had achievement testing last year, I would be spending time looking at all 32 schools in our CISA district, Southwest Wisconsin, to see how you and your peers scored compared to other schools in the CISA. And we look at those scores with great pride because like with academics, like with the marching event, like with FFA, we like to stand out in what we do. School pride, your scores count to that. Not just the kids at the top of the heap, everybody's score counts. Be the best you can be. Rewards, I have not talked to Mr. Uppana, but typically he'll offer things like if you score so high in the conference as a group, you can get most or all of May your senior year with open campus. He'll come up with a list of rewards and say, based on your rank, this is what you can earn. Some pretty cool perks. But again, that means everybody's score counts because everybody's score goes into the average. Time management, focus, and stamina. ACT is designed to measure what you can produce in the given time. In the given time. You might take some tests in high school where you're not quite done and the teacher lets you stay and finish and then gets you a pass to class. ACT, they say time's up, you were done. So it's not just testing everything you know and can produce, it's testing again what you can produce in the time allowed. Time management is a huge option or a huge obstacle for some, and that was experienced on the pre-ACT. ACT is designed to tell colleges how prepared you are to be successful when you enter their campuses. We call it college readiness. Your goal is somewhat to graduate from high school. We hope it's a goal. Our goal is we assume you graduate from high school. We want you prepared for success at the next level. ACT tells colleges we can predict who's going to be successful on your college campus by how they score on our test. And here are the benchmark scores. If you can score an 18 in English out of a possible 36, then they consider you college ready to take college composition at a four-year college. If you score 22 in mathematics, they consider you college ready for college algebra. If you score a 22 for reading, they consider you college ready for a freshman social science class. We don't often think of that. With reading, we think it's an English subject. Colleges look at reading as a predictor of how you'll do in social studies, sciences, more social science. Because in college, you're given a lot of material to read. It's not lectured on. They just expect that you will be able to read it and digest the material. And then finally, if you can score a 23 out of 36 on ACT, you are considered college ready for freshman biology. And by college ready, what they mean is, if I'm college ready in English, I have a 75% chance of taking freshman composition and getting a C or better in college. If I'm college ready in English, I've got a 50% chance of getting a B or better in freshman composition. And that's how they look at it. They've done statistical analysis. For those of you looking at technical colleges, They look at a 16 makes you college ready. Keep in mind, there are some programs though that you need things beyond just an ACT score to get in. For example, you have to have the CNA course before you're officially admitted into the 2-year technical college at Fenimore for nursing. Some programs might require high school geometry or chemistry with a C or better average. And up at Southwest Tech, future nurses have to take the HESI exam, Health Education System Incorporated. ACT at a glance. Here's how your day will go. You'll come in the Commons about 8 o'clock. We'll give you a little fire up speech. I don't know if Mrs. Vogelsberg will have the pep band there or not. That's a thumbs up, okay? Then we will get you to your ACT test room. You will start with English, 75 questions, 45 minutes. No breaks, straight into math, 60 questions, 60 minutes. Then you get a 15-minute break. You come back from that break and you get reading, 40 questions, 4 passages, 35 minutes. Then you go straight into science, 40 questions, 35 minutes. Then we give you a stand and stretch break while the teacher collects all those materials and hands out the writing prompt. You have to do one writing prompt. It's usually a persuasive essay. You get 40 minutes to do it. Writing is important as well. If you finish your 40-minute writing essay in 10 minutes, you sit there. You don't get to leave. Nobody leaves until time on the test is called. I encourage you to show people how well you can write. A persuasive essay, I know Mr. Wingert has gone through some things. I've emailed you a couple of things about coming up with a nuanced statement and supporting it with detail. And that's really what they're looking for. Can you take a position on something and back up your position with reason? Not just because, but giving 2 or 3 or 4 good solid reasons why you think the way you do. Again, if we look at the ACT versus a pre-ACT, again, in the red, you can see how many questions you had for English, 45 compared to 75 on the full ACT, 36 math compared to 60, 25 in reading compared to 40, and then you had 30 in science compared to 40, and you didn't have a writing prompt. So again, I'm going to keep coming back to stamina, focus. It's a long test. Composite ACT score is merely the sum of your 4 multiple choice sections: English, math, reading, and science. Left-hand column, an example: 20 English score, 24 math, 18 reading, 21 science is a composite of 21. When they add your 4 scores together, they always round up. So if you come up with 20.5, you are 21. I gave a couple of other examples that you could look at. In the right-hand column, in the red, the national average for English subsection score is 20.1. National average math, 20.3. Reading, 21.2. Science, 20.6. And nationwide, the average score on ACT is a composite of 20.9. If you are looking at a 4-year college, you want to try to get in that 21, 22 range if you can. 4-year colleges, again, look at ACT, but they'll also consider extracurricular activities. They'll consider leadership positions, work experience, volunteer work, and other things that make you stand out. They'll also look at an essay you write for admissions. And writing well on that essay is important. ACT writing score is not the 36-point scale, it's only a 12-point scale. And you can see that if you score 10 or 11 or 12, you score in the top 1% of the nation. That tells me that writing is hard. People don't like to do it sometimes. But you have a chance to really excel. And if you're trying to get a scholarship and your essay is written so much better than somebody else's, big leg up. You're trying to get into a college and your admissions essay is written so much better than somebody else's, a big leg up. Again, Mr. Wingert is working with you this fall on different writing strategies. They are important. How ACT is scored. It is as simple as this. For every question you get right, you get a point. There is no penalty, no deduction for anything wrong. So the bottom line is, on ACT, do not leave anything blank. You might randomly guess right. That helps you out. Here's an actual ACT scoring table. Now I've mailed this home for you. And again, you may not see it so well from the back, but we talked about college ready benchmarks. If I want to be college ready, I needed a science score of 23 in science. On this table, that tells me I have to get 24 right out of 40. I can get 16 out of 40 wrong and still be college ready. In math, for me to be college ready with a score of 22, I can get 32 out of 60 right and be college ready. 28 wrong out of 60 makes me college ready. Important takeaways from this we'll come back to. But I guess the other thing I should point out first is, as you look at that scale, the difference between, say, a 23 in science and a 24 for a sub-score is literally one more right question. The difference between a 26 and 27 in math is usually one or two more right. So when we go through ACT test prep, there are going to be certain things that you just don't know how to do. That's okay, because ACT does not require perfection. You can get a lot wrong and get a good score. Again, one or two more right is usually what it takes to bump you up to the next subsection score. And ACT test prep will help you if I am willing to work at it. I've mailed home ACT test prep schedule. We'll go through it again during this presentation. It is a bit of a grind. You get 6 homerooms talking about English test questions, 6 on math, 6 on reading, 6 on science. Take advantage of that. Because the wrong takeaway is, well, I can get a lot wrong and get a decent score. I don't have to work hard on test prep. ACT is very challenging. They expect that students will get things wrong. That's why they allow you to not be perfect to get a good score. But without preparation, don't expect your ACT score to go up. In fact, it might even go down a bit because the test is longer and your focus and stamina will be tested even more. Test taking strategies, you'll get these too in test prep, but again, never leave anything blank. Number 2, educated versus a non-educated guess. Somewhere along the line, we've lost the focus or ability to do this as much as we did when we were younger. When we'd take multiple choice tests in elementary school, we were told if we know A is wrong, just put a line through A, cross it out. Now we don't seem to do that. I talk to students and they're like, well, I didn't know. I knew it wasn't this one, but I just kind of guessed anyway. If you can raise the sub-score by getting 1 or 2 more right, then you can take an educated guess instead of a random guess, you can improve your score. I'll come back to that. Time management is a big factor. In each pre-ACT section, I encourage students to, when I say you have 40 minutes begin, to look at the clock. Even when I tell you to do that, most of you don't do it. When I say there's 5 minutes remaining, look at the clock. Most of you don't do that. Those are time management strategies that you need to get used to. If we're not going to leave anything blank and you're not looking at the clock, and I call time and you're like, gosh, I would have colored those 10 in, too late. The last national test aid ACT test I proctored, there was a student from another district in the county who only answered 45 out of 75 questions on the English, left 30 blank. Had she randomly guessed, she'd have probably gotten 8, maybe 9 right, just on average. That could have raised that score 3 or 4 points, depending on how many she got right elsewhere. So again, time management. I'll tell you this again later. Dress in layers. You know, it's Lancaster High School. Some rooms can be really cold, some can be really warm. I don't want you to be uncomfortable. One test taking obstacle we had, some of you were in that time where we didn't get the heat turned on at the Eckstein building until halfway through. And it was like 58 degrees in there. It was hard with your numb fingers to color circles. Those things happen. Dress in layers so that you can manage things. More test taking strategies. When we go through test prep, we know certain things are on the test. In fact, we mailed home a copy of a test, ACT test, that's been retired. It has the answer key in the back. Things like subject-verb agreement, semicolons, things like combining sentences. They're going to test the same concepts on every test. If you can learn those concepts, you will see them again. Another test-taking strategy, this pertains to reading. And I'm sure Mrs. Flynn will cover that. But you will get several questions that say, okay, what does the author mean in line 28? So you go to line 28. Don't start reading there. Read a sentence before and a sentence after. Because of the perspective, the answer is contained in all three. And beware of multi-step math problems. I'll show you one of those in a minute. Random guess. Again, there are things that we just don't know. I put in what city was noted physicist, Lucas Bradford born in? Boston, Philly, Baltimore, New York. Anybody know? Guess and move on. First of all, there is no Lucas Bradford that I'm aware of. I made that up. But there are questions we don't know. This is a timed test. It's okay. We don't need to be perfect. Guess, don't leave it blank, and move on. Educated guess. Fighter pilot Walter Jackson was famous for his bombing missions in which war? Revolutionary, American Civil War, World War II, or Vietnam? How can we make an educated guess here if we've never heard of Walter Jackson?
It says bombing, which usually implies like planes. They didn't have those in the Civil War or Revolutionary War.
Outstanding. No fighter pilots in the Revolutionary or Civil War. Now we're down to a 50-50 guess. We just increased our odds tremendously from random 1 out of 4 to now 50-50. When you take your test, please look for those, because this is how multiple choice questions are made on tests. Usually there's 2 wrong answers that are fairly obviously wrong. Then there's the correct answer in something they call a distractor. In test taking terms, if you can look at the 2 questions that are eliminated, then you're down to 50-50. And similar options give a clue. It's down to these 2. Why is one a better answer than the other. And you will get practice on that in ACT test prep. Here's an example of a math distractor, and I know from looking at some of your pre-ACT tests, this was an issue. Tom Brady bought 5 fully inflated footballs for 20 cents each. Sales tax is 5%. How much did Tom Brady spend? Jack is laughing, but we know those balls were not deflated. Now, how do we have to figure out how much the footballs cost? 5 footballs, 20 cents each. How much is that? $1. What's one of the answers on there? $1. On multiple step math problems, the answer to the first calculation is usually the distractor. You say, oh, $1, that's right there, that must be it. But what do we need to do to finish his cost? Sales tax, 5%. So the second calculation gets us to the correct answer of D, $1.05. Math distractor. 2-step problems, the answer to the first part is one of your choices. ACT again is not going to try to trick you. Their content is the same test to test. That's why they can compare your scores this March to students last March or 5 years ago. They're testing the same things with different numbers, different words, and different reading passages. Again, the takeaway is if you can brush up on a few skills and test prep in each subject area, you can raise your score. Because remember how it's scored. 1 or 2 more right in each subject area will boost your score. When we look at an English question, you know the format. They underline a passage and they ask you to go back and answer if there's no change, or they give you 3 other options. You're going to see a lot of things again, subject verb agreement. And I'm going to pick on football announcers. I heard one yesterday talking about a game, saying the team, they is excited. No, they are excited. Subject verb agreement. Now, you're going to see a lot of had. How to use the word had. It's going to appear in different tests. Mr. Wingert will go through these things with you. Math. And ironically, I picked another 2-step problem for math. We are given a triangle with 2 sides, and we have to use the Pythagorean theorem to figure out the hypotenuse. But the question is, the midpoint of line AB is how many inches from A? Now, if we square 32, that's going to, mental math, be about 1,000. 24 is going to be close to 600. So we're close to 1,600. So hypotenuse is going to be 40, E. But is that the answer? No, that's the distractor. Because it's asking us the midpoint of the hypotenuse. 40 divided by 2 is 20. Your correct answer would be B. Reading question. I'm not even going to try to read that to you. Some of you are squinting. I could not make a slide that would actually get a passage on there and make it readable even up close. On the pre-ACT, I think the weakest section for preparing you for what test day will be like is the reading test. Because you only have 3 passages, 25 questions, 30 minutes. On the full ACT, you'll get a 4th passage, 15 more questions, only 5 more minutes. So the pace is really, really amped up. I will encourage you, and a few of you take me up on this each year. Time yourself taking the reading test on the copy I gave you. Read at a pace that's comfortable for you. See how fast you can get through that material. Because again, the passages are going to be longer than on the pre-ACT, more of them, and 15 more questions. When I talk to students after the test, more often than not, they're going to talk about how tough the reading was. There just wasn't enough time. Mrs. Flynn, an ACT test prep, will give you some strategies you can consider using, such as there's always 4 different content areas for passages. Picking the passages that you're better at, you're most interested in doing them first. So if you have to guess, you guess on other passages. Some of you can read at a comfortable pace, get all the material, and then answer the questions. Some of you might be better reading the questions and then going back to the passage. Again, if you work hard in test prep, she will help you figure that out. Science test, all about graphs, diagrams, short paragraphs. Again, it used to be called the science reasoning test because they assume you have certain science knowledge in your background. But what they want to do is say, given the information, can you reason out the answer? Mrs. Carell will be doing ACT science test prep, and she will be giving you all kinds of sample questions and giving you strategies on how to go through them. I talked about if you have to retake the ACT, it's a $62.50 commitment, your pocket. Here's the statistics. People who retake ACT, 22% stay the same. 24% go up 1 point. 18% go up 2 points. And a lucky 15% go up 3 or more points. Why do people go up? Because 1, they've experienced the test before. If because they have that experience, they know what to expect on test day. Through pre-ACT and ACT test prep, we're trying to give you that experience without paying for it. We're trying to give you that experience without losing a Saturday morning. Take advantage of it. Again, the most important aspects of test prep. You get the instruction in the content area, you get test taking strategies in each area. This second point is really, really huge. And again, it's the one that's going to be, I think, quite frankly, hardest for you. Stamina and focus. Test prep, again, why do we have to do this? If your mindset is, why do we have to do this? You're probably not going to benefit from it. If your mindset is, we get to do this today, this is for me, I can learn something that will make me better, then you will probably benefit from it and it will show on your ACT score. Because when you're having to focus 40 minutes 6 times a week on ACT challenging questions, that builds mental stamina. Simply put, number 3 again, you work hard, you benefit. If you don't, number 4, work hard, don't expect your scores to change. Again, it comes back a lot. So what are you willing to put into it? Test prep schedule starts December 2nd. Coming up fast. We got Thanksgiving here in a couple of days. Again, rotation. All of you will have different rotations. Off the top of my head, I think the green team starts with English. But all of you will start with one subject area. Couple weeks, 6 homerooms, and then you rotate. Attendance is taken for this. Now, if you're in school, you know that. For those of you virtual, they will be taking attendance and checking if you are actively participating. So if you are asked questions, please respond. Test prep materials. You got a copy of the test mailed home. You got the scoring rubric. Teachers will provide other things. I was just talking about getting our bill paid for something called Method Test Prep. And that's an online software. The teachers will use some of it with you, but you can access it at home. And it's a database of retired ACT questions. You answer them, you put your answer in, it tells you right or wrong. If you get it wrong, it gives you a tutorial about how to select the correct answer for that problem. That is available to you. Again, I've kind of referenced this, but Mr. Wingert will do English, Mrs. Noble will do math, Mrs. Flynn will do reading, and Mrs. Carell will do science. Mrs. Noble, for example, I talked to, is going to try to target math based on each individual group. There are going to be some questions that kids in pre-calc might get, but kids in Algebra 1B or Algebra 2 won't get. To try to keep kids from tuning out, we're going to try to have groups such that you're in the same math levels for the most part. Because again, I don't want you to be frustrated because you don't know a trick question and tune out when you could learn an algebra question that will help you on ACT. The other thing that teachers have done is, let me just get that out of there, maybe. Won't split it, we are down to one slide. Teachers have gone through your pre-ACT test. Collectively, we get what's called an item analysis. Question number 1, hang in there just a second. We can see what percentage of kids got question 1 right. If we got most of our kids getting that question right, we know that concept. Question 2, only 28% got it right. They look at the question, they look at the targeted skill and say, okay, you know what, we've covered this, but we haven't covered it for a while. We need to look at that at ACT test prep. So again, the things they're teaching are the things they know you need as a junior class. With that, the last thing again is, you'll get out of this what you put into it. It really is for you. It's your future, your opportunities. Please take advantage of test prep and good luck on ACT. Thank you, folks.